Think about when you walk into a room, like a conference room where there's other people there already. Do they stop and take notice of you? Do they stop to come up to you and shake your hand and say hi? Do they smile? Or do they just ignore you and not even notice you, or even maybe give you weird looks? These two experiences relate heavily to how much executive presence you have. We're going to talk about executive presence today. Welcome into the channel. My name is Tom, the founder of Vertical Motion, where we help good people become great leaders. You can learn more about that down below. Today, what we're talking about is how to have executive presence. So first of all, let's start out with a definition of executive presence. What does that even mean? Well, generally speaking, executive presence is the weight that you carry in a room. It's what other people sense about you. So imagine that you're at a restaurant and then George Clooney walks in and sits down and has dinner at that restaurant. Everyone's going to be kind of buzzing a little bit like, oh, George Clooney's here. That's pretty cool. And as soon as he leaves, the whole energy of the restaurant comes down a notch. Like that is gravitas. That is the weight that a person carries in a room. And there's a whole lot of nuance to this. But generally speaking, people with heavy gravitas, the ability to have a big weight in a room, those people have that presence. And specifically, leaders have executive presence. What I want to really talk to you about today are the three most important things that you need to know about executive presence. Now, there are a lot of things that make up executive presence beyond just the gravitas that I mentioned. There's so many other things. In fact, Sylvia Ann Hewlett from Harvard wrote an amazing book called Executive Presence that actually helps explain this in much more detail. I'm not going to go into that level of detail because quite honestly, what I have learned is there are really three things that drive the majority of what people think of when they think about executive presence. And these three things are what drives most people to become great leaders. So I'm going to give them to you in order from least to most important, right? Number 3 on this list is decisiveness. Decisiveness is what it sounds like. It's the ability to make decisions and be decisive in situations where decisiveness is necessary. I can't tell you how many managers I have worked for in my career, especially having been an engineer for so long, that just could not decide their way out of a one-hole bag. And it's a little frustrating to watch someone stumble over something so simple as to just choose one way or the other. Both will work. Maybe one's a little better than the other. Just choose a path. Right? Decisiveness is really important in executive presence. If you get analysis paralysis and you cannot move forward with a decision, why would you ever want to be in leadership? Look, a lot of people start out living in analysis paralysis and then they grow out of it over time. Decisiveness is a skill that you can learn and develop. And quite honestly, what I like to tell people is to practice decisiveness in what I call throwaway decisions. And so throwaway decisions are like, should we get this milk or that milk? Should we buy these eggs or those eggs? Should we choose this at the restaurant or that at the restaurant? Should we go on this vacation or that vacation? These decisions won't have necessarily lasting ramifications for your life going forward. But as you learn how to just choose one or the other, you can become more decisive. Now, here's the thing to know about executives. Generally speaking, executives make decisions with about 40% of the information that they need to make a great decision. If they had 100% of all the information they needed to make a decision, well, there wouldn't really be a decision. It would just be doing the right thing. So 40% of the information necessary to make a decision generally is what executives get. This is why a lot of decisions are wrong. And quite honestly, things change after they make the decision. One of the things about decisiveness is that you start moving in one direction, which actually lets you see more data than if you just stood there staring at the problem for days on end. When you make a decision and you start moving forward, you can realize that you've made the wrong decision, and sometimes you can turn it around and actually go make the right one. But other times, it turns out that one decision might get it done in 3 days and another decision gets it done in 4 days. And if you choose the one that does it in 4 days, it still gets done. And this is the thing about decision making that people don't realize is that, quite honestly, if you think 5 years into the future, most decisions you're making or you're struggling to make won't impact you in 5 years from now, or at least not negatively. That's not true for all decisions, because I can think of a few that impacted me earlier in my life. But the point is that when you are decisive, you move forward. And that decisiveness is what people are looking for in their leaders, decisively doing what they believe in. And hopefully your beliefs match those of the people who are following you. Number two on the list of how to have executive presence is communication. So let's break down communication generally. There are two forms of communication, one where you are transmitting and one where you're receiving. So let's talk about the transmitting part first, because that's what most people think of with communication. Can you stand up on stage or in front of a conference room and with confidence and poise say what needs to be said? Can you communicate and articulate effectively what needs to be heard by others? This is why you will see really good executives. Sometimes it seems like they're saying something 3 or 4 times in a row. They're not. What they're doing is they're actually communicating in the ways that different people need to hear the information. So one of the things that I've learned is that there's generally 4 types of people, right? There's the people that are very aggressive, direct, and just need information. There's the social butterflies. There's the people who care about community. And then there's the people who just care about the data, the facts, and the analysis. So when I have to share bad news, for example, that like, hey, we have to lay off 3 people, I share it 4 times because I know that the team, being large enough, is going to have 4 different kinds of people in there. So think about it. The first thing you say, it's unfortunate we've had a pretty rough quarter, so we have to let 3 people go. Okay, that was said for the very direct people who just want the information. Got it. Okay, so 3 people are gone. Okay, let's move forward. Those people get the information, they assimilate it, and then they just move on, right? The second type of person are the social people, right? Like the people that are just kind of like, ooh, what's going on? So you tell them a little bit more about the story of why, right? So high social people want to know the story behind the decision. Yeah, we lost this really big account that was so important to us. And unfortunately, they went to our competitors because they basically bought the contract and they won on price. We're still the best quality. That customer may come back to us in a year or 2. But in the meantime, we have to let some people go. So that is for the story people. The direct people don't care. Right? And that's not enough information for the next 2 groups. And that's why the next part of this is really talking about people who care about the community. I know letting people go is really tough. It's a hard thing to do. And I know that this is going to impact our team, not only the people that are leaving, but the people who are staying. And I empathize for that. I really tried to figure out how to make this not happen. But at the end of the day, the corporate leaders decided that we had to make these cuts. And so we're trying to make them as carefully and thoughtfully as we possibly can. And my heart goes out to not only, like I said, the people who are leaving, but also the people who are left behind. You say that for the people who care about community. And then finally, the last group are the ones that just take forever to understand something. They need all the data, the analysis, the facts, the quant behind it, right? And so you start to share some of the statistics, some of the data, some of the information. So last quarter we had these numbers, and then this quarter the numbers came in this way, and you can see a 27% decrease in our profitability, which actually means that we're actually unprofitable this quarter, and therefore we have to get underneath of our costs in order to stay afloat. And that's why we have to do this. You're giving the data and the analytics to that group. So when you communicate verbally, you want to communicate in a way that you're talking to 4 different kinds of people. And so great leaders understand that about communication. But here's the second side of communication that's really important. It's the listening. And we don't just listen to hear people, listen to acknowledge people, listen to respond to people, which is what most of us do. We need to be listening to understand, right? When you listen to learn, that's a very different type of listening than listening to respond. Right? So you listen to someone and and you start thinking about what you're going to say to them next, and you just can't wait to cut them off and tell them what you know. That's not listening. I don't know what that is, but it's not listening. It's certainly not listening to learn. When you can listen to learn, you take your time, you're absorbing not only the data and the information that's coming from the person, but you're also absorbing their energy behind it. You're trying to glean what their emotions are about the information they're sharing. And when you listen to learn why they are so passionate about the thing that they're passionate about, or why they believe something that maybe you don't believe, listening to learn allows you to build your empathy, and it allows you to hear the perspectives of people that have very different backgrounds and experiences than you do. So communication obviously is a very important skill for executives to master, and there's a lot of nuance to it. We teach these things in detail in our Executive Career Accelerator program that helps mid-career professionals become executives. We teach you the communication skills. We teach you how to be decisive as well. And then we also teach you the number one and most important element that I believe makes up executive presence, and that's confidence. I want to talk about confidence for a minute here. It's not the kind of confidence that you might see on whatever Twitter is now. It's not the kind of confidence that you're seeing coming from the White House right now. That's not confidence. That's arrogance. Confidence is something that comes from inside of you. Intrinsic confidence is this ability to believe in yourself. It's this ability to know that what you are doing is the right thing. It's based on your experiences, your morals, your values, and your beliefs, and your desire to make positive, lasting change in the lives of as many people as possible. When you believe in those things, your decisions get so much easier. Your ability to communicate gets so much easier, and your confidence improves. Most toxic leaders struggle with internal confidence. Actually, what's happening is they are extrinsically motivated. They are motivated by factors outside of them. They want people to say nice things about them. They want people to care about them. They want people to think they're important or powerful or rich or whatever. Right? Those people, extrinsically motivated people, quite honestly, are dangerous because you don't really know how they're going to show up from day to day. And I remember back in 2010, when I first started out as an executive running my first startup company, I was so tied to the numbers of the company. If we had a great month, I was in a great mood. If we had a terrible month, you didn't want to be around me. That's terrible leadership, quite honestly. I'm embarrassed when I think back to what kind of leader I was back then. And I'm so glad and grateful that I've become a much better leader now. But confidence needs to come from inside of you, not from other people, not from spreadsheets, not from likes and hearts and retweets. That stuff doesn't matter. That's only positive reinforcement of what you should already know about yourself. And when you have negative reinforcement, or a whole bunch of people say that you're awful, you're terrible, you're disgusting, you're gross, but you know you're not, then you can just shake that off and ignore it, right? You can ignore the haters, but you can only ignore haters if you have intrinsic confidence. And I can tell you, when I started this program and I had a couple reels on Instagram go viral with 4 or 5 million views, and I got a lot of nasty comments, it hurt. I felt terrible because I was looking for external validation. Now I've learned to build my intrinsic belief and my confidence in my message, and that makes me a better leader. And I ignore the haters now. They can say whatever they want. I appreciate the engagement, but it doesn't affect me. It doesn't change my beliefs, my values, anything like that. Now, I will listen to learn when people say thoughtful things like, hey, I appreciate what you're saying. However, I have this difference of opinion. I love that. I love to learn other perspectives and other experiences that can better inform mine because I have the confidence to know that I have these strong opinions, but they're loosely held and I'm willing to move on those positions. Again, because of my internal confidence. When you meet someone who only deals in absolutes or says it's this way or not at all, it's only this way, this is the only right way to do something, this is the only right religion, this is the only right method. When you hear that stuff, that's someone who doesn't have a ton of self-confidence. And so they're not going to be a great leader. People with confidence command the most attention. People with confidence can show up anywhere and they can make other people feel confident. And that's a really special gift when you can stand here and talk to a community and make them feel confident in themselves. That's what I aspire to be. That's who I want to be. I want to be someone who takes my confidence and gives it to you so that you can become the version of a leader that I know you can be. So, decisiveness, communication, confidence. If you master those 3 things, your executive presence will skyrocket. And yes, there are dozens of other attributes and things to know about executive presence, but let's start here with the basics: decisiveness, communication, confidence. You build those skills and you will become a much better leader than you are today. And it is a growth process. I'm constantly growing. Every leader I know who's a great leader is constantly growing and trying to become even better. And that's what we should all be striving towards: better leadership, because damn, do we need better leadership in this world right now. So you want to learn more about executive presence, feel free to click that link down below. We're going to have a conversation and talk about how you can develop and build your executive presence, which will lead to better opportunities for you in your executive career journey. That's what I got for you today. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you in another one soon.